good day, or good night, whenever that is for you. Welcome to Learn, Live, and Prepare. Today, I'll share with you our most valued hand tools that we recommend for homesteading. If you're interested in growing your own food and you want to start a food forest or a garden of some kind, you may find the right tools in this video. Most of these are fairly common, and the knowledge of their use and practicality is also common, but I'm going to go through them and just give you a brief explanation. If you don't find what you're looking for, or you may have your own recommendations, we encourage you to leave your questions and suggestions in the comments. Now let's get straight to it. Okay, let's start off with some of the smaller hand tools. These will be good for small projects. If you're just doing a small garden, or possibly you're doing potted plants, you can get yourself some garden trowels. If you're going to be moving soil into pots, that'll make a clean job out of that. Got some small leaf rakes. If you're going to be working in tight areas, those might come in handy. There's sickles. This is a Japanese sickle. I can't remember what it's called, but these are really nice for weeding. You can also get a combination hoe and cultivator. Those are really good for weeding as well and cultivating, getting your soil ready for plants. If you're just starting out, I would highly recommend a hori. This has quite a few functions actually. You could use it for digging, you can use it for weeding. It has serrations on the side so it can cut some of those weeds. It also has like a hook edge right here. I don't know what that's actually called, but that'd be good for cutting cordage or some of those more fibrous weeds. And we also have a grass hook, which this is mainly used for grain, harvesting grain, but you could also use it, we use it a lot actually for weeding, especially around our trees where we can't get to it with a weed eater. But again, we're talking about hand tools, so this is handy for weeding also. Just a quick PSA before we get too far into this. Make sure you're using these tools properly for their intended use and during the day while you're not fatigued or under any influence. You don't want to get yourself hurt or somebody around you. I can vouch for that PSA. I've personally been walking around the yard pruning some plants, enjoying a cerveza, and I reacted to a bug on my hand that had the shears in it, and next thing I knew, I had my shears in my leg and had to go get stitches. So don't do that. Stay safe. All right, let's talk about shovels. Most common one is the rounded pointed shovel. A lot of people have these. They're great for digging. I like to have some of the shorter handled ones for when I'm working low to the ground or in a smaller area that's a little bit more confined. Those longer handles end up, kind of getting in the way at sometimes. So it's nice to have a shorter handle one, but great for digging. Next here we have the square shovel, which really don't use too often, but in the case of where you might be transferring soil, mulch, or stone, and you have it on a flatbed, or you might have it on some pavement, these really come in handy for getting that off of the pavement, for cleaning that surface up and getting every little bit of it. And then right here we have a post hole digger. That one's pretty obvious. It's great for digging post holes. If you're going to be doing any fencing, those are really handy. You could also use these for planting small potted plants. If you have anything that is in a 3-gallon or maybe less than that, you can use that for prepping the holes. Next here we have a trenching shovel. These are good for trenching. And behind that we have a drain spade shovel, which is good for planting some trees even, if you're trying to get more depth to the hole. These kind of work well with the post hole diggers at times. Great for working in a small area if you're trying to get a deep but small hole. Right here we have one of my favorite shovels, the caprock shovel, or it can be called a steel shovel or a rounded shovel. This one here is fiberglass, which makes it a little bit lighter, but these are excellent tools to have if you're going to be doing any kind of horticulture or landscaping. I would highly recommend this. I've used this for helping me put in the irrigation when I was trenching. Sometimes I'd come across a lot of roots This will cut right through those roots. You can put a nice edge on it and cut right through those roots and keep on going. Or you might be planting a tree of substantial size. This will be good for prepping that hole, cutting through some of that turf. One thing to mention is these are not bulletproof. They are very heavy duty, but they're not bulletproof. I've broken a couple because I wasn't using it for its intended use. I was using it to pry out some bamboo. So if you do plan on prying anything, if you have stumps that you're removing, I highly recommend getting yourself a spud bar. These are excellent. It's just a straight iron bar. A lot of construction workers use them, but great for the homestead as well if you have to do any kind of prying. It comes with a flat tip, and then it also comes with a pointed tip. And then over here we just have some various hoes that are good again for weeding. There's another type right here that has another cultivator on the back. Behind that we have a edger, which is good for trimming up some landscaping, or if you have some type of ground cover that you want to keep contained and keep a nice edge on it. Another great option for cultivation for row gardening is the wheel hoe cultivator. This has different attachments that you can apply and use. Makes quick work and less strain on your back. And we have different pitchforks, again another shorter handled one for when you're working in a smaller area and you don't need all that leverage. But then we have some other longer varieties. There's I think like a 9-point or a 10-point, and then there's a 5-point. Those are great for if you're doing mulching jobs, or if you're moving, you know, straw or anything that is light but has a large quantity. That should be able to pick it up pretty easily, and you can move that to where you need to take it if you're putting it into a wheelbarrow or what have you. And then next to that we have some rakes. We have the bow rake for some of your heavier stuff. If you're going to be raking or compiling debris, it could be stone or mulch or some larger branches, that will come in handy. If you're doing light duty stuff, these leaf rakes come in handy. Down here, pickaxe. So in some areas you might not have sandy soil like I do. You might have clay, you might have rock. If that's the case, I highly recommend a pickaxe. This will really come in handy if you're trying to remove rock or break it apart. Or again, if you have clay, it's just much harder to get into that with a rounded point shovel. You can use this pickaxe to break that up. All right, and what you see right next to the pickaxe here, this is a post driver. If you're going to be putting metal posts in the ground, those you're going to want a post driver. That's going to get it into the ground a lot easier than having to use a sledgehammer. Speaking of sledgehammers, they're not a bad idea to have some of those. You can still use those for driving metal posts or even demolition work. Not a bad thing to have. All right, so that covers most of the landscaping, hardscaping, and agricultural tools. Let's get into horticulture. So let's start off with the saws. You might have some fruit trees, or you might have some trees that you want to do some pruning on. Use a saw. Don't make the same mistake I did. I used an axe on our guava tree, and it's not pretty. So get yourself a good saw. These are Silkies. These are excellent for pruning branches off. And do a little bit of research before you go and start pruning. There is a proper way to cut that branch off the tree. I may do a video on that if that's something you guys are interested in. But a saw is a great tool for horticulture if you have fruit trees or other trees that you want to do any trimming on. Machetes are also great tools to have, but generally these are used for vegetation removal or cutting through vines. They're not often used for landscaping or the horticultural aspects because they tend to tear the plants. So if it's something that you want to make look pretty, you don't really want to use machetes. Sometimes you can, but unless you're very experienced with this, I would really only use this for vegetation removal. But an excellent tool to have. Another great tool is pruning shears. If you're just doing some light pruning, if you have some smaller branches, those saws really aren't going to be necessary. You can get yourself some of these pruners. These are Felcos. These are a little bit costly, but you can also get some Fiskars that are just as good. I know that's probably going to strike up a debate, but these are great to have, an excellent tool if you're going to be doing some small pruning, light pruning. Hedge shears are also good to have if you have hedges that you need trimmed up. Another great tool is these are larger pruners. These are good for if you really can't get in there with that saw. It's very confined space. You can get this in there and you can cut a larger branch that you can't use your smaller pruners for. These are great to have as well. All right, and last but not least, let's talk about wood processing or wood harvesting. If you have logs that you need to split, a splitting maul is an excellent tool to have. A froe is another option. This one's fun. You just simply place it where you want to split the log and use a wooden mallet to drive it into the log. A hatchet is also good for smaller pieces for splitting. And then we have a double bit axe. The double bit axe is my favorite axe to use, mainly because you can keep one side sharp and the other side somewhat dull for cutting roots or cutting into soil. The other side you keep sharp for splitting or cutting down trees. Another great option to have. All right, friends, that just about wraps it up. That covers pretty much all of our gardening tools, our outdoor tools. If you guys have any questions or you want any more information or you may have suggestions, feel free to leave comments and we'll do our best to get back to you on that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, take care.